Welcome back to the Peachy Graduate Podcast. My guest today, Corinne Austin. Welcome, Corinne. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me here, Rich. It's always great to be in the same room as you.
Virtually. It's
Yeah.
great to be able to do this, and particularly to chat to you, who I respect highly and have known for a long time. And I guess just to have one of these conversations rather than all the other sorts of conversations that we've had along over the years. Um,
Yep.
and it's not always easy to get people on here when I would like them to be on here, and so it's great to be able to finally find a time that works for both of us and have this conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome. I think it's about 2 years in the making, this, isn't it? You've sort of
It could
chased
well be.
me.
I'm not a very patient person, and so and so when I get something in my head, it has to happen now. And like, it's
Yep.
like, what do you mean you can't? Well, that's just not acceptable. So it's been
No,
really been good
yeah,
for me.
yeah. No, and good for me too, because it was like, I mean, you know me well enough to know that I wasn't just putting you off for
Oh
no
yeah,
reason. Like
yeah,
there was,
yeah,
I think when you first asked, there was some big changes going on in my life. So it was
yeah.
just my mental space probably wasn't going to be able to give the best I could to this. So I
Sure.
wanted to
Yeah.
be in a place where I could. So yeah, all is good
Brilliant.
now.
I appreciate that. And yes, you're right. I was aware, but I don't think anybody knows the inner workings of people's lives often. We see an aspect of a person, and it's nice to be told, look, yes, but not yet. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. I get it. I get it. That's great. So anyway, we're here. So it's interesting. We've kicked off this year, and I've actually been chatting to a few winners. I like to try and grab all the winners or as many as I can from the awards at the end of the year. So it's either December, January, February, and so I've been chatting to Jimmy, who won Supreme Facility. I caught up with Donna, who won PT, and I also caught up with Saskia, who won Up and Coming PT recently. So I've got this head full of winners and all the stuff that they shared, and there'll be some obviously their episodes are coming soon. So I'm just talking to another winner.
Oh, well, I'm a bit of a vintage winner now, really, but Rich,
Oh,
I know.
yeah, yeah. Well, then that means I am too.
Yeah.
Yeah, improving with age probably. So yeah, 2017 was your year, and it was great to pass the mantle on. From
Yeah.
from myself to you that year. It was great to be at the awards, and it always is. But tell us how it all started. That's really what I like to find out first. Is what are people's original motivations? Sort of what was the genesis of their career in this industry, and what inspired them to get into it. And often people are sporty, and there's this and there's this. Some stories are similar, but that's not always the case. So I love hearing that, and then we kind of zoom into what you're doing now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're going back a few years, Rich.
Yeah.
So when I first left school, I actually wanted to be an accountant. So maths and accounting had always been my top subjects at school. I'd always really enjoyed them. I always did really well in them.
Yep.
And accountants to me, in my naive 17-year-old self was, accountants were rich people. They had money. And so
Right.
accountancy seemed like the good thing to chase. And so I actually did one day the Bachelor of Business at Auckland Uni before realizing and thinking, no, I'm not doing that for another 4 years. So took a step out and quit there, which isn't like me. I'm not a quitter, but there was something
Mm.
in me then that said, no, this isn't you. You shouldn't be following this path. And took another 6 months to basically just ponder what I wanted to do with my life. And from there, I decided, I'd had various conversations with people, and I came to the conclusion, I guess, that I needed to do something that really followed what I was about.
Right.
And that the things that I'd really enjoyed in my life, and I'd always really enjoyed being outside and active. I'd been in I'd lived on lifestyle blocks my entire life. I'd had horses since I was 8. Life was always busy and hands-on.
Mm.
And I think too, there was my nana passed away at a really young age. She passed away at age 50 from a liver disease. And there
Mm.
was probably that aspect too of being aware from a young age of how precious health was and how precious life was.
Yeah.
And yeah, so at that point, I decided to follow the sort of the sport and exercise route and maybe go on to become a personal trainer. And I then proceeded to do the Bachelor of Sport and Exercise Science through the Waikato Institute of Technology.
Yep.
It was a 3-year degree. I actually was top scholar in my year, so I got the academic award at the end of my degree year, which was another
Very
little sort of
nice.
win in my career.
Yeah.
And following that, I actually did a postgraduate diploma in psychology through Massey University.
Oh, really?
So, what? Yeah, no, you probably didn't know that
Didn't
either,
know
did you?
that.
No. So I'd really enjoyed the sport and exercise psychology aspect of my sport and
Mm,
exercise science degree.
mm.
And psychology is not really something that you're not taught about psychology at school. It's sort of
No.
just a word, you don't really understand what it is. And so I, decided to sort of further the psychology scope because I'd really enjoyed the sport and exercise side. So the graduate diploma in psychology covered all the different sort of bases of psychology. So we did social psych, cognitive psych, biological psych, evolutional psych, organizational psych. There was
Mm,
8 different flavors of psychology that we covered in that year.
right.
It was all through Massey University, so it was all by correspondence. So I was
Mm,
doing that whilst working in a gym in Hamilton.
okay.
And yeah, and so I mean, I didn't go on to follow the psychology route, but I like to think that some of the ways that I think
Mm,
about things are possibly influenced by the study that I did there.
mm,
And yeah, so that was kind of my
mm.
genesis, if you like. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then I moved back to Whangarei and started at a gym up here. I was just a fitness instructor back then, and then I became assistant manager, and then I decided to also step in to try some personal training. And it was about 6 months into personal training at that gym, and I worked at that gym for 3 months, for 3 years, sorry. It was about 6 months into personal training there that I realized that very, I was under the gym's umbrella. So I couldn't
Mm,
spread my wings. I couldn't
mm.
create or be my own flavor. I couldn't have my own sort of philosophy. I
Right.
couldn't, in terms of the gym fees and things, they took a significant portion of what the client paid, even
Mm,
though the client was already paying a membership. So there was just things there
mm,
that I didn't necessarily agree with and weren't allowing me to fully express who I wanted to be in the personal training field.
mhm.
And then it was my husband at the time, Shane, that said, just go out and do your own thing. And so I started what was then one-to-one personal training in the single garage of the rental property that we were
Yeah.
living in at the time.
Nice. Yep.
So that's how I began.
Ah, fascinating. You see, a lot of that I didn't know. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
I think you're right. When it comes to that psychology piece, it should be a compulsory component of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever sort of level of qualification people get, it should be a compulsory module or whatever
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in there because it's the bit that we often get stuck with our clients. The physical stuff, the movement stuff, that sort of comes taken is taken for granted. We know that stuff, but the thing that often gets in the way of people's success is the top 2 inches. And if we
Totally.
don't have any tools to manage that or at least help people, we're kind of stuck and we have to kind of go away and find out for ourselves what
Mm-hmm.
is needed to help those people. And
Mm.
I think it's a big chunk missing. And the further I've got into what I do, the more that area becomes much more fascinating and interesting to me.
Absolutely. And I've often wondered too, I don't know if you've done anything in the sort of like the NLP field, but that would be another little element that I'd really like to,
Mm,
get under my little,
mm,
into my little toolkit, into my little arsenal, because,
yeah,
that whole being able to reframe a situation or reframe the way that somebody dwells in or tries to get out of a situation is, as you're saying, so critical to their progress, to their change, to their improvement. So,
mm,
mm, yeah,
yeah,
big part.
yeah, yeah. I mean that to answer your question, yes, I actually did my practitioner quals last year,
Oh,
um, and it had been in the pipeline since 2020, but the C word got in the way at some point, and some of it was in person, and we had to go online, and ended up not finishing it, so started with another organisation, and yeah, it's an amazing body of work that NLP, lots of tools, yeah, yeah.
mm. So did you do it? You didn't do it through the same outfit that Cody does it through? No?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I
you
did.
did? Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, because the local one sort of let me down, which kind of almost was I saw coming, but wasn't sure. But anyway, I got some money back and said, right, what am I going to do with this? Right, let's reinvest it. And Cody was the person that I'd known who had been through another version of it with a different educator. But there is a syllabus, and they have
Yes.
to tick all the syllabus boxes to give you the qualification. And I had a chat to her and was like, tell me more about it. And once she'd finished telling me, she did an introduction to the owner, and I was on the course.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
She's done so well in that field
yeah,
too, right? That
mm,
she's
mm,
really become the star in that field. She's found her place.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting dealing with her now compared to when we were working with her at Kaizen.
Yes.
She,
Yes.
she's a different beast. She really is. It's changed her for the better in so many ways. Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. And
yeah,
you see that just in like her social media
yeah,
posts and
yeah,
content. Hey, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
Been
awesome.
brilliant for her. Yeah.
And so, yeah, if we can take a little bit of that and sprinkle it into what we do with our clients in terms of movement,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really powerful combination.
Mm.
And so, talking about what we do with our clients, you're a busy bee. There's quite a list of things that you get up to, Corinne. I'm not sure how much downtime you have for yourself, but yeah, you're running group classes, you have movement coaching, health coaching, you do some mentoring, and more recently, which I probably want to dig into the most, is the functional, the medicinal consulting that you do, and I quite like the way you've differentiated that, because a lot of the other stuff's coaching, whereas the functional medicine stuff is consulting, and I think that helps differentiate it for people, and that it is different to what we normally are used to. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm keen. I think most people would probably understand all the other things on that list that I just rattled off. But if you can go into that functional medicine side a little bit more, probably more about what drew you to it first, and then tell us about what it is, or the other way around. Don't mind.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I can firstly credit Dave Leo actually, because it was being at one of his presentations at FitX one year, where he, put out his little famous quote of "We're health and fitness professionals, but whatever happened to the health?" So then
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
put me through the Kaizen mentorships, right? And that's
yeah,
how we connected even more.
yeah,
And through him and Ange, I guess I was given the foundation of the functional health sort of umbrella
mm.
or arena. And I don't know. I think I've just got a brain that just doesn't stop thinking, Rich, or doesn't stop questioning things, Like I've just
Yeah,
always got, if something doesn't make sense, I want to know why it doesn't make sense. Or if something doesn't, make sense, I want to try to find out how it can make sense. Um,
yeah. I
so
like it.
I guess I just kept rabbit holing, and somewhere along the way, I think in fact it was Ray who put me onto a Perry Nicholson
Mm,
podcast.
mm,
And then I started listening to him. So he does a lot of the functional
mm.
movements side of things,
Yeah,
which complements the functional medicine side beautifully.
yeah,
And then in one of Perry's podcasts, I heard him speaking to Dr. Stuart Gillespie, who
yeah.
was very under the radar. He's
Mm,
certainly not very present, via the internet or anything, but
yeah,
he does
yeah.
an incredible job with what he does. But he's he does the functional medicine stuff. And effectively what happened was him and Perry had met at some conference, and Perry was at his worst health wise.
Mm,
And the two struck up a big conversation. And at that conference, Stuart kind of said to him, look, you need to try this, this, and this. And Perry said within a week, the three things that Stuart had told him to do to try to combat the different symptoms that he was down and out with. So Perry was a chiropractor back then, right? And he had to
mm.
shut down a clinic. Like he was really, really crook.
Okay.
And he said within a week, he was a changed man. And he went back to Stuart and said, look, we need to teach this stuff. This stuff needs to be known. The world needs to know it.
Yeah.
And so I was at, I believe it was their third ever mentorship that they delivered together in Sydney
Yeah.
pre-COVID. So this was
Mm,
2019, February 2019.
yeah.
I went to their weekend mentorship in Sydney with about 30 others. I was the first Kiwi to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sort of taught me the functional medicine side. And I think it's literally just, like that famous quote of Dave's, whatever happened to the health? It's knowing that as a personal trainer, we can influence so many things,
Mm,
and we can get our clients exercising well and often, and we can get them eating well, but yet they still have symptoms.
mm,
And so
mm.
it's trying to understand the jigsaw and all the different pieces of the puzzle that, have somebody experience an autoimmune disease or chronic long-term pain or migraines or menstrual issues or tummy digestive troubles or skin issues or any other such thing. It's trying to get to the bottom of that. And it's also, like this is often something I say in all of the different presentations or whatever I do, is where, we've got the most intelligent medical model in the world. It is more sophisticated than it's ever been. There are more specialists, more doctors, more drugs, more interventions than ever before. But yet we're the sickest population to roam the earth. And something's just not adding up. And it's not that the medicine's not doing their job right, because they're doing an absolutely incredible job. It's that on this other side, the ambulance at the top of the hill, there's not enough in terms of the health promotion side. There's too much reactivity and not enough proactivity.
Yeah.
We feed far more into treating illness than we do into promoting wellness. And it's understandable somewhat why there isn't, because it's there's far more financial things in medicine and in drugs than there is in promoting sunshine or lying on the grass or being with friends. But it's just one of the things that you can probably hear it from passion in me and with conviction. That's just something, if I spend the rest of my life trying to have people understand the different signs and symptoms, messages given to them by their bodies, and becoming more aware of those signs and symptoms, and knowing that those are little whispers, and if they don't listen to those little whispers, they'll become groups of whispers, and then that group of whispers becomes a scream, and then suddenly they need to do something, and they're given X, Y, or Z drug, but they're not actually told to look for actually what caused it in the first place. Because our bodies don't just give us something. We don't just suddenly one day have a heart attack, or we don't just suddenly one day develop rheumatoid arthritis. This is a development, a process, or processes in action within our bodies from the day we're born to whatever day we present with those things that have enabled those things to, come to fruition, to present themselves. So I want so badly to be able to empower people to, one, become more aware of their body and what's going on within it and what the different signs and things mean, but two, understand all the little things that we can actually do and they're accessible to us every single day to help us be more well.
Yeah.
Run over.
I love it. It makes total sense. And I think that thirst, the asking why, the curiosity is so strong in you that you're not taking any of it for as gospel until you've found the answer you're looking for. And I think your clients are lucky to have you, because there aren't that many people out there that are prepared to keep going to look for the answers, to do the education, to invest in it, to spend the time to get to the point where it really changes things for clients, makes a difference for clients. So bravo. It's a challenging thing, right? Because there's a whole lot of learning to do, and there's a whole lot of variables that go into those things. That one person can present with the same thing as the next person, but the reason they got to that point could be completely different. And so the answer is never the same. There may be similarities, but
that's right.
yeah, it's a challenging thing. So bravo.
I often explain it that way too, right? Is that you could have 2 or 3 people with rheumatoid arthritis, but the formula for each of them might be different. So it might have been A plus B plus C gave one of them rheumatoid arthritis. It could have been J plus Z plus K gave the other one.
Yeah.
So it's just unpeeling the layers of their own life onions to get to the root of what's created it in each of them. Yeah.
Have you come across Peter Attia's book, Outlive?
No, it's not familiar.
Yeah, interesting. I've finished reading it over the holiday, and he's sort of become a little more well known because of Chris Hemsworth's show Limitless on
Yes. Yep.
on Disney, I think it is.
Yep.
He's in there a couple of episodes, and it's interesting. He talks about medicine 1.0, medicine 2.0, and then this ambulance, instead of the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, the fence at the top of the cliff is medicine 3.0, which is exactly what you're saying, bringing the focus to the proactivity and the prevention rather than, well, you're already sick. Now we know you're sick. We know how to treat you, and waiting for the sickness to appear, which is old school thinking. And obviously, as you say, they're doing an amazing job, but that's the training, and that's the paradigm that they've lived in since they had
Mhm.
their initial training, and that's all they
Right.
know.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
and I think people like Peter Attia and Dr. Rangan Chatterjee are the people that are now going, well, what can we do as individuals either to upskill ourselves and create that preventative toolkit, or at least lean on people who do know about those things, so that we don't end up in hospital and waiting for some major operation to sort of keep us alive. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and and
Yeah.
and 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 I think slowly that's moving forwards, right? And people like yourself, you're equipping yourself with a whole lot more knowledge than an original vanilla, personal trainer, so that you can be the strongest possible fence possible at the top of that cliff for your clients.
I like that. I've never heard the term vanilla PT. I'm gonna say I'm like a multicolored Neapolitan then.
I like to say that I'm the wasabi flavored ice cream.
Nice. That's spicy.
Yeah,
Oh,
spicy.
yes, green. Yeah.
Wasabi's green, right?
Oh, you could also think spicy, which puts a different ring
Yeah,
to it.
bit of both, maybe. I don't know. Just not vanilla. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's interesting. And I understand the concepts now. And can you kind of help for those who are really interested in this and maybe listening and going, oh, that's something I'm interested in. What would it be can you maybe use a client as an example, keep them anonymous, but give us the example, and you don't have to give us your IP in terms of the solutions, but so talk us through generalities in terms of the treatment and then how people then end up obviously improving and what that means for them.
Yeah, all right. Okay, which client am I gonna? Okay, I'll speak about.
Sorry, on the
I worked. Yeah, no, it's something I could have researched beforehand, but
spot.
that's good. Putting me on the spot is all good. I've got an 11-year-old boy, and I'll speak about him because
Right.
he's a pretty special case. So he's a local boy, and he's probably now 12. And
Mm.
my actual consultation with him originally was during Cyclone Gabrielle, and I
Oh,
remember it quite
yeah.
clearly. So
Yeah.
that was before our power was cut out.
Crikey.
And he basically, well, I consulted with his parents. I wasn't consulting with him. I
Yeah.
was consulting with his parents on
Mm.
his behalf. And he had ongoing kidney pain, like really excruciating sort of kidney pain in both sides,
Mm.
and recurrent ear infections
Mm.
for a lot of his life, particularly the ear infections across his whole life. The kidney pain, I believe, it's sort of been 2.5 years out of sort of, visits to all sorts of different specialists at Starship at Auckland Base Hospital. And yeah, and they just weren't getting anywhere. And he was in pain. He was having to be off school. He'd had quite a long period of time off school, in fact. And yeah, so it was basically going through his whole sort of life. So when I do an intake, I'm asking questions about all of the different systems within the body, as
Mm.
well as everything that's happened to them from birth, including how they were birthed. And
Okay.
sometimes, depending on how, some of the answers I get in the intake, I'll also ask questions about the mother's or the father's upbringing, because there's transgenerational
Of
stuff that
course.
can come
Yep.
as well,
Yep.
which is always just, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so what we basically uncovered was there is a massive candida overgrowth. Effectively, he'd had like a lot of rounds of antibiotics because he'd had multiple surgeries to try to figure out what the kidney pain was as well. He was
Yep.
also getting, that was the other thing, he also was excruciating in terms of weeing. So if he could get up any time of the day or night, his parents, his toilet, the kids' toilet in their house was, a level below the parents' bedroom, and they could hear him going to the toilet because of the moans and groans he would put out as he was going every single time. And so
Yeah.
he'd had various surgeries down there to try to figure out what was, creating pain as well, but not really getting anywhere at all with medicine. The weeing pain continuing, the kidney pain continuing, the
Mm.
ear issues continuing
Mm.
as well.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of, because of the surgeries, because of a lot of the antibiotics that are given during surgeries, and there was a couple of other symptoms as well that pointed to candida overgrowth, but
Mm.
we basically chased down the candida overgrowth.
Yep.
And within, I want to even say within 3 weeks, he was a changed child.
Wow.
Um, he's unfortunately had other issues since, and the
Mm.
issues he's had since were because of stitches that
Yeah.
hadn't dissolved within him.
Yeah.
So that needed more surgeries. But that was, I think, like I said to the parents, that was because we'd been asking so much
Mm.
elimination from the body that
Mm.
the dissolved stitches that hadn't in fact dissolved were now trying to escape the body. They were trying to come
Yeah.
out through its skin,
Yeah.
and that was causing the pain.
Yeah.
And they just weren't getting anywhere, so they needed to be surgically operated on. So, I mean, I mean, you can imagine as a parent seeing your child go through that and going through all the different specialists and him still being in pain, still having ear issues, having to have time off school, not being able to, go to the toilet once in any day without being pain free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of imagine how helpless you must feel as an adult. So I think
Mm.
being a parent myself, I really felt for them. And
Mm.
I become fully invested in every client's journey. Like it's just, you feel their pain. Like I feel it quite deep, the different pains. When I say pain, it's not always like a musculoskeletal pain. I'm meaning the pain of just having
Mm.
symptoms
Mm.
around
Mm.
so long. But yeah, he was probably one of my biggest cases. And it was just a case of literally digging into and understanding the root cause of the different presentations he'd had, and ears and kidneys and urinary tract stuff is all often very connected. If you look at traditional Chinese medicine, the ear and the bladder are all connected as
Ah,
well there.
okay.
But they're all often places that candida overgrowth can manifest. So
Okay.
yeah, that was probably one of my coolest cases, just in terms
Mm.
of the significant change around and the parents putting faith into a an area that is a little bit, I won't say airy fairy, but it's just unknown. There's
Yeah.
not many people that
Yeah.
know the ins or outs of functional medicine and how it works. So they put faith in me, so I wanted to deliver my best by them. The
Sure.
case was actually pretty easy. Once I did the intake, it was just like it was just standing out on the page
Ah,
what was going
okay.
on.
Yeah.
But it's just the difference between medicine, who acts to suppress symptoms,
Mm.
or functional medicine, which acts to understand why the symptoms are there. So we take the symptoms at face value. Like
Mm.
they
Mm.
tell us something, but they don't tell us
Mm.
why they're there. Their
Mm.
history and everything that's happened in someone's history is what tells us why something is the way
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, it's all in the questioning.
A
Yeah,
lot
and
of
then
detective work.
absolutely. So it's the whole health detective thing. And that's, again, I mean, ironically, one of the things I wanted to do through sixth and seventh form was be a detective, but I didn't want to go
Yeah.
to police college and do however many years it is before you actually go on and be a detective. But
Yeah.
now I'm being a detective in a
You
completely
are.
different way. So it's
Yeah.
sort of come full circle. And
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. And, being that detective, you're always asking questions. You want to know why, right? You're trying to get to the bottom of what's actually happened.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. It's good. It's really good to get an insight and an understanding. And it's interesting as you were talking from anyone else's paradigm, you think ear and bladder. What? We almost assume that there has to be a link when they're located close to each other.
Mm-hmm,
It's the whole ABC thing instead of, like you said, the J, Z, the F.
mm-hmm.
It's just a little bit mind blowing to someone who isn't familiar with that and go, how are they? I don't what?
Yeah,
There
yep,
clearly is a link.
totally. And I think it's the whole also, medical is very reductionist. So you get
Mm.
specialists, you've got however many different specialists all looking at a very finite place within the body and being specialist area in that. But they don't have any real connections to how that particular area works with any other area. So
Mm.
functional medicine works with the entire body. We look at the entire body as well as the entire life to try to piece together how things are interacting with each other.
Yeah.
We're a very, very interconnected body. And I heard the other day, actually, just a great analogy is that, like, water is made with hydrogen and two oxygens. Well, they're two gases when they're on their own, but together they become water.
Mm.
So it's the whole hydrogen can't, on its own, once it's connected with oxygen, and suddenly you've
Yeah.
got a whole different thing. Well, the body works just the same, right? constant interactions between all the different systems. And if you're only looking at one certain system, you're not seeing the forest through the trees.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a super highway of interactivity, isn't it, really? I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about body and mind, and I think we've evolved enough now that we can say that those things aren't separate. You know, the fact that they're attached to each other is almost still a little bit reductionist, because actually our body is our mind and our mind is our body. It's one and the same. How could we possibly separate them out?
Yeah.
And I suppose it's the same with the rest of the systems in the body. They're all running at the same time within the same vessel. And it's weird how medicine has sort of, as you say, is reductionist. You've got the knee specialist and you've got the thyroid
Yes.
specialist. And
Yes.
they look at that particular part because they understand it really well, but they don't
Yes.
necessarily know how it integrates into the rest of the body. A knee expert and I might not know the importance of the glute firing for the knee to be, and the foot specialist might not know, the same back up the chain. And I think hopefully we are sort of evolving as an industry that we're beginning to look at the whole body all the time.
Yeah.
And okay, so that knee could be affected by the hip, it could be affected by it could be
Mm-hmm.
affected by the shoulder. Let's
Mm-hmm.
look at the whole person rather than
Mm-hmm.
just the part, and see what we can come up with,
Yeah.
which is exciting. I think we're getting there.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's just little steps at a time, hey, and just having that impact on the people that we do work with, and having them be our what I call our sneezers. The people that go around and spread our disease, our amazing little bubble of broad knowledge, I guess. Yeah, Neapolitan, being Neapolitan.
Yeah, I like it. I could just keep talking about that stuff, but it's fascinating. How does the functional medicine education go? Because does it really end? I mean, I know you've done a lot, so it's not just that one you talked about, right? You've gone back. You're constantly learning. Does it? How do you know
Totally.
when to sort of go? Okay, enough's enough.
No, you don't, right? Because
No.
science and information is ever evolving. And I
Mm,
think that's what keeps us all fresh in our industry, is keeping up with the play of what's going on, what's changed. Funny you ask, because I did the functional medicine mentorship 5 years ago this month, actually.
right.
And I'm actually this month starting the third round of what he's teaching. So
Right.
Stuart Gillespie, is constantly rabbit holing, is constantly keeping up to date with every single study within his field, and updating his own knowledge, and then updating his students as well. So I've
Right.
done, in fact, I might have done 2 other rounds of his mentorship, because I quite enjoy doing it just as review too, but he's often got new bits and pieces in. But the one starting in a few weeks' time, there are more different immune types. So we learned about 3 different immune types when we
Yeah.
did our functional medicine thing. I think he's now graduated that to 7 different immune types, because
Oh,
he's
really?
because of how different things are presenting in the human body, and just different things that he's seen that have evolved from the outcomes of studies.
Mm,
He's
mm,
basically defined 7 different immune types, which then affects how we work with clients and the different
mm,
solutions
mm.
and actions we can do with them. So yeah, it doesn't stop, Rich, but I think that's
No.
what's fresh and on our toes, right? Is that we're wanting to
Yep.
continue evolving, and it keeps
Yep.
us fresh in our practice, I think.
Yeah.
Stepping
Yeah.
into whatever education floats our own boat, and the
Mm,
things that really make our
mm.
minds sort of really glow, and open up to the what if, and why is that.
Yeah. 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 Um, a slight sort of change of direction, but one of the things that I liked on your list of things that you do, and I didn't mention this before, is the overseas hiking trips, or just the hiking trips. But I know you've done some in Europe, in the Alps, I think. Is that right? Um, just massive endeavor, and I think it speaks to that sort of level at which you operate at. For me, you're not someone who instructs, you're someone who inspires. And I think that that's how you come across, both on social media, the way, your language. You're an extremely positive person, and I think that's as a classic example of how big you think, in terms of, right, we're flying to Europe, we're going to climb a mountain. Tell us a little bit about one of those trips.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing from what you just said about me. That wasn't actually, so that trip wasn't created by me as such. I was invited to be a partner
Yeah.
for that trip. So it was
Okay.
created by a company called Dream It, who's a
Mm.
local fellow up here actually, who wanted to partner with other sort of, I guess, health or fitness providers who wanted to do something like offer adventure tourism or adventure activities to their clients.
Mm.
So that was, I haven't done anything like that since, but that was, again, COVID put a big stop to a lot of that, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Right.
And so that was, yes, that was also in 2017. So that was another
Okay.
highlight for my 2017 year. That was
Yeah.
August. And we basically, we got invited along to basically invite 20 of our clients along for a trek around the Swiss, French, and Italian Alps. So doing what's called the Mont LeBlanc sort of tour Mont Blanc or something.
Yep. Okay.
For the exact name, but
Yeah.
yeah. So it was. I think we spent 11 or 12 days on trail. I think.
Yeah.
And there was. I was in tears the night of our prize giving because there was people on that trip who they had gone well outside their comfort zone of anything that they ever thought they could possibly do and would ever do in their life. And we created a couple of awards, to give out on the very final night just for different things that we'd seen or different things that we'd been inspired by. And I couldn't get through my spiel. I had to pass over to Sam because I just got so emotional that these people had come so far, had put in months and months of training and had got through the pretty heavy going of the trek that we did. It was beautiful. I mean, the two tour guides that we had said that we had just the best luck with the weather because I think all 11 or 12 days on trail, we had blue sky except for one morning where it was just very cold and a really brisk southerly or northerly wind. But every other day was just blue skies, mid sort of 20s, and we were hiking. We sort of hiked from I think 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and then depending on how far we go, it might be 5, 6, 7 o'clock before we got to the next lodgings for the next night.
Okay.
All of them, like our gear was taken for us, except for one overnight that we had to take all our gear. But yeah, we stayed in different huts and different refuges, and met different people along the way, and it was just a really, really inspiring thing to have done. I'm really pleased that we got to do it. I mean, we were very fortunate. Sam and I were very fortunate. We got the trip for free.
Okay.
We got 20 people along to do it with us.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a very very, very grateful that fell into my path. Yeah, as I say, that was another big highlight to my 2017 year.
Yeah, it is. You can just imagine this postcard scenery, isn't it? With the green trees and then the white cap mountain, and it's just stunning part of the world.
Yeah, we've got some amazing photos. Yeah, it made me inspired I want to take the kids back and do it. It was inspiring walking through. There was families doing it. Mums or dads with babies in front packs and little 7-year-olds with walking poles and packs on, and kids that have obviously been exposed to it from young in their life. But yeah, it's pretty cool. We've got some pretty amazing things in our world.
Yeah. It's great to be able to do it. And if people go beyond, like you say, they've won some awards to go beyond what they would normally do. Imagine how that could potentially change them when they come back to everyday life and go, well, if I can do that.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I don't really want to wrap up, but I kind of feel like we have to because I don't want to hold you up, but at the same time, we could probably go for another hour and a half, but maybe we'll plan a part 2 later.
Okay.
So I always wrap up with top tips because I like to if we can get everybody saying a few top tips, then by the end of listening to a bunch of episodes, people have got some real gems that they'll resonate with, and I think will be useful for their businesses. So that's where I like to wrap up and go, right, what are your top tips? And you might have 1, you might have 5. It doesn't matter how many, just whatever you think's useful too. Getting in and staying in and longevity. That's sort of the original point of the podcast.
Okay, so say that last bit again? What was it about the longevity?
Um, so the original point of the podcast, when me and Matt Norris kind of started interviewing people, it was about
Yeah,
helping people get in and stay in, and
into
longevity.
personal training, you mean?
Yeah, into the industry. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and the reason for that was we were motivated by the fact that the attrition rate was so poor. People were coming
yeah,
in and they were
yeah,
falling by the wayside. And if they were good, good people were failing. And that first sort of year to 2 years is the critical timing. And after that, it's a sort of make or break. If they've got through that, generally they've got the income, they've got the sort of the stable base, and the business will go well. But often that wasn't the case. So we're like, well, how can we fix this? Right. Well, let's talk to lots of people who have gone past that. How did they do it? What did they do? And what were the things that worked for them? Because obviously everyone's different. It's never the same. So really the top tips is just about what worked for you, for from the growth of your business, from the stability of your business, whatever you think is useful.
yeah. Wow, it's quite an open-ended question. When you said top tips, I wrote down a bunch of things, but they're
Yeah.
completely irrelevant to these types of
Oh,
tips that you're wanting. So,
sorry.
no, that's okay. Again, I'm thinking on the spot. Uh, so, gosh, I think just never being afraid to follow what your heart desires or where you naturally feel inclined to go or to question.
Mm,
I think it's probably very easy to come into this industry and just think it's a numbers game. How many clients can I see in a day to make so much money?
yeah.
I think if you're a new PT and you're just establishing yourself, really deeply ponder what it is you're enjoying about the sessions or how you can possibly make that client's life better for them. Be
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
in the structure of your programming and what you offer in your programming, in, helping them outside of just the vanilla PT sort of thing.
Yeah.
Follow up any avenue that you feel a desire to go down. I think
Yeah.
that's me to a T. I just, if I
Mm,
had a question or an interest, I haven't ever stopped to think, should I do that? It's actually just been no, follow that path, see where it takes you. And you'll
mm,
know straight away, I think, if it's not right for you, because it just, it will leave a bad taste in your mouth, or, you
mm,
just won't have an interest in pursuing it. But
mm, mm.
so I
Okay.
guess, yep, following a passion. I think getting a mentor or a coach
Yeah.
and doing regular education is critical to maintaining the freshness and the
Mm,
vitality in what you do every day.
yeah.
I don't think you can come into this industry and hope that the original qualification is going to see you through 10 years, because so many things change, not just in your own personal life, but in clients' personal lives, and how society evolves
Mm,
or is evolving. And I
mm.
think you need to, um, yeah, just keep following that. I had something else I was going to say there and I lost it.
That's okay. That's okay.
Um,
It might pop back in your head, but I think you're
yeah.
right. Yeah, we've got to keep moving with natural progressions.
Yep, and
Mm,
yeah, like I
mm.
say, having a mentor or a coach,
Yep.
somebody else in the industry or others in the industry who you can bounce ideas off. Like I know I'll often come to you with different things, just a little question random out in the
Yeah,
blue, Rich,
yeah,
what you do in this situation, or
yeah.
you know, I think it's critical to have that little network of people.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
and one of the things I did actually write down that might still be relevant is
Mm,
make sure it's a happy yes. So if you're presented with something, and it's not something that you want to jump into, or it's not like a happy yes, I should do that, then is it actually worth pursuing? It's about that immediate
mm.
instinct gut feeling about something. The happy yes,
Yes.
jump into it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Excellent.
And don't be afraid. I think too, don't be afraid to do what others aren't doing. Because I think one of my first ever mentors, this is going way back to when Dave used to work with Scotty K,
Mm, mm, mm.
was one of the first quotes I heard was, the smaller the niche, the bigger the market. And that
Yeah.
stuck with me to this day. And I think it's critical that we don't just try to be a vanilla PT, that we really, find our own niche, we find our own flavor, we color outside the lines, and, have something really memorable about what we do, so that,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
remain in people's minds outside of just the 1 hour that we're with them.
Yeah, yeah, that's brilliant. I've got
Yeah.
lots there. I've got lots.
Good.
I've,
Oh, good.
I'm scribbling hard.
Oh, good. I can keep
Brilliant.
going. I feel like I talk too much sometimes.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. It's excellent. That's a really good set of there are some similarities, but there's some real differences there in terms of your approach, your feel, your sense of how to approach things. So I like that because that gives people things to ponder.
I think too, also practice what you preach
Right.
and make sure you have some downtime.
Mm,
That downtime and getting into a zone of zen or calm or chill or
mm.
relaxation is so critical, I think, to having our minds in the right space when we're with clients. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got to cultivate that. It's an important thing, right? Pouring from a
Yeah.
full cup. Mm,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm. Thank you very
Mm-hmm.
much. I won't keep asking because I've run out of paper. That's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah, very cool.
we have covered quite a bit of ground, and I'd still love to plan an edition two because there's so much more. But it's longer than a traditional episode. I'll tell you that.
Oh,
Um,
is it? Okay.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to
So
apologize or
so
like
hopefully hopefully people will. I know people will get some value out of that listening to it. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for everything you've shared and telling us a bit about yourself and particularly the functional medicine side of things. It's been really interesting hearing how that works, how that client came to you, what they went away with, and how that's making a difference for people. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. And if anybody listening to this wants to know more about the functional medicine side, I'm more than happy to, have questions and emails or messages or whatever from,
Fabulous.
people that just want to know more about that, before they dig into
Okay.
it themselves. But I think
Mm,
it's the way the world's going when the world's in such a
mm,
state of poor health.
mm, mm,
We have when we're seeing clients, once weekly or twice weekly or 3 times weekly, we have such a powerful place to make such an impact in their life and what we
mm,
practice with them, not just in the
mm.
exercise realm, but functional health sort of side of things as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Well, I'll make sure there's some links to your socials so people can reach out if they want to and make contact from there. Cool.
Awesome. Cool.
Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thanks for having me here, Rich.
Okay. Bye.